NBC. Saturdays starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. Live.
Rise for a moment of silence in remembrance of over 100,000 Americans who have passed away from the COVID-19 virus.
A solemn moment in the House chamber today. Both sides of the aisle rising together to remember the American lives lost from the coronavirus. Minneapolis erupts with protests over George Floyd's death turning violent. One person shot and killed in the chaos. Buildings set ablaze and stores looted. Many demanding the arrest of the former officer who put his knee on Floyd's neck. The National Guard brought in as the city braces tonight. Economic crisis. More than 2 million American jobs lost just last week. That's now 40 million people out of work since the start of the outbreak. Food pantries have been overwhelmed trying to meet the need. This as a number of cities, including New York and Las Vegas, reveal plans to reopen. The latest on President Trump's battle with Twitter, signing an executive order targeting social media companies. But does he have the power to shut down entire platforms? Mass shooting thwarted, a gunman on a bridge firing randomly at cars stopped by an Army soldier. What he did with his vehicle that police say saved countless lives. The trademark laugh from His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, sitting down with our Dan Harris for a revealing interview. What he said about President Trump and why he thinks it may be time to completely shake up the very institution that made him a global spiritual leader. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. The governor of Minnesota is calling on the National Guard in the wake of fires, unrest, and now deadly protests in parts of Minneapolis. This is all in the aftermath of the death of George Floyd, the unarmed black man killed on video after a white police officer placed his knee on his neck as Floyd uttered those words we have heard before, "I can't breathe." This after he allegedly tries to use counterfeit money. While firefighters have been busy in Minneapolis putting out more than a dozen structure fires, protesters suggest without action, the flames of injustice will not be smolder. They want the officers involved arrested. The city of Minneapolis still simmering tonight. No charges or arrests today from local or federal officials as they plead with residents to remain calm. Our Alex Perez leads us off.
Tonight in Minneapolis, pleas for calm after a night of rage. Demonstrators angry over the death of George Floyd at the hands of police, officers firing tear gas and rubber bullets, but quickly losing control. Windows smashed, dozens of businesses ransacked and set ablaze.
It is a large fire inside AutoZone.
Police say one man was shot and killed near a pawn shop in the chaos. The mayor asking for help from the National Guard. Federal and local law enforcement speaking late today.
That we are conducting a robust and meticulous investigation into the circumstances surrounding the events of May 25th, 2020, and the police officers' actions on that evening. My heart goes out to George Floyd. My heart goes out to his family. My heart goes out to his friends. And my heart goes out to the community. We are grieving, and we will continue to grieve.
Moments earlier, our John Carl asking President Trump.
Have you spoken to the family of George Floyd yet?
No, I haven't, but I feel very, very badly. It's a very shocking sight. Bill and I were talking about it before. It's one of the reasons Bill's here right now, because, as you know, we're very much involved. And I've asked the Attorney General, FBI, and the Attorney General to take a very strong look and to see what went on, because that was a very, very bad thing that I saw. I saw it last night, and I didn't like it.
Do you think those police officers should be prosecuted?
I'm not going to make any comment right now. I can tell you, I think what I saw was not good, very bad.
The city still smoldering at daybreak.
We all need to come together, please.
I was fine with it when it was protesting against the cops. When it came to affecting the community as a whole, it just hurts us so much more in the long run.
City officials pleading for peace.
You have every absolute right to be angry. However, you have no right to perpetrate violence and harm on the very communities that you say that you are standing up for.
I'm absolutely sorry for the pain, the devastation, and the trauma that Mr. Floyd's death has left on his family, his loved one, our community here in Minneapolis, and certainly across the country and the world.
The video is hard to watch. ABC News has confirmed the white police officer seen leaning on Floyd's neck until he loses consciousness is Derek Chauvin. Chauvin and the 3 other officers have been fired, and the mayor wants Chauvin arrested. And tonight, new body camera footage shows Minneapolis Park Police arriving at the scene Monday. Surveillance footage shows Floyd being arrested. He does not appear to seriously resist. Loved ones called Floyd a gentle giant. Former NBA player and close friend Steven Jackson says losing Floyd was like losing a family member.
Floyd is one of the strongest people you know. And to hear that scream and that cry for help in his voice,
All right, let's bring in Alex Perez, who's been on the scene for several days now. Late today, Alex, federal and local investigators held that joint press conference, but did not announce any arrests or criminal charges. Give us a sense of their message today.
Well, Lindsay, I can tell you people here in Minneapolis, across the country, maybe even across the world were waiting for this press conference, anticipating possibly charges, but that did not happen. What officials said at this press conference was that they are still working on this case. They are still examining the evidence and building a legal case as part of this investigation. They wanted to highlight that they don't usually have press conferences like this, but this case has brought so much attention to law enforcement that they wanted to acknowledge that they are working on it. Now, Lindsay, I also want to mention, we also learned late today, that police records show that the officer that had his knee on George Floyd had actually had 18 complaints filed against him. He had been disciplined twice. Tonight here, as you can hear some of the noise behind me, everyone here hoping for peace. Lindsay?
Of course. All right, Alex Perez, thanks so much for your ongoing reporting. And next, as we've reported, the death toll from COVID-19, it continues to grow. More than 100,000 lives lost in this country. Certainly a sobering reminder of the devastating impact that this virus has had on so many Americans. The economic impact is also difficult to comprehend. 40 million people, that's 1 in 4 working Americans, or to put it another way, people are now unemployed than live, more people are now unemployed than live in the entire state of California, our nation's most populous state. And we're going to get back to that in just one moment. I think, are we going to Benjamin Crump right now? Let's bring in Ben Crump, the attorney for George Floyd's family. Thank you so much for talking with us tonight, Mr. Crump. 3 days after George Floyd's death, there are still no arrests. Michael Freeman from the Minneapolis prosecutor's office said today that they are working as fast as they can, but they have to do this right, was what he said. The prosecutor suggested that there could be evidence that does not support criminal charges against the police officers. Do you have any idea what that evidence could be, and are you satisfied with that response?
The family of George Floyd is not satisfied with that response because we all saw the video, and the video, provides all the probable cause you would need to arrest these people who had no consideration, no regard for the life of George Floyd as they set their knee on his neck, not for 1 minute, not for 2 minutes, not for 3 minutes, all the way 8 minutes. And while he's asking for them to remove their knee, saying, "I can't breathe," even the people, the general public, were telling the police to take your knee off his neck because you're killing him. And what's so horrific about it is the fact that the police are supposed to be the ones trained to de-escalate a situation, but it seemed to be the lay people trying to get the police to de-escalate the situation while the police was escalating the situation, and it is just tragic. The last minutes of George Floyd's life, him begging for breath, and it is murder.
And as you well know, parts of Minneapolis have erupted over the death of George Floyd with lots of protests, and Floyd's family has thanked the protesters but urged them to remain peaceful. The Minnesota governor today activated the National Guard. When you first heard that that was going to happen, was that an indication to you that charges were not going to be forthcoming today? And is that the right thing to do, to bring in the National Guard?
Well, it's troubling to me as a civil rights lawyer because we just watched a couple of weeks ago armed militia go to the state capital of Michigan to exercise their First Amendment constitutional rights to free speech. But when Black people come to exercise our constitutional rights to free speech for George Floyd, we're met with now the National Guard, tear gas, rubber bullets, and arrests. It just seems to be two Americas, one justice system for white America and another justice system for Black America. And we need equal justice for the United States of America. And that is not what we're seeing in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
We're learning more about the police officers involved in George Floyd's arrest and death. Officer Derek Chauvin, the man who is said to have pinned Floyd down by the neck, had previously been involved in 18 complaints and had been disciplined twice. What do you make of that?
Obviously, there was a pattern and policy within the Minneapolis Police Department that they either condoned what he was doing or they consented to what he was doing, because 18 complaints, where there's smoke, there's fire. And we saw the fire that caused George Floyd his life, and now there's fire on the streets of Minneapolis.
President Trump and the Attorney General are said to be monitoring this case. Do you have confidence in the Justice Department as well as the Minneapolis police?
The family has no confidence in any law enforcement right now, especially when they released a police report that clearly had false information and left out pertinent information saying that George Floyd died because of a medical condition, and said nothing about the police officer having a knee on his neck for almost 8 minutes. And then you look at the fact that they said he was resisting arrest. Look at the video for yourself, all of the surveillance video. He was a man who was handcuffed face down. Even when they put him in handcuffs, he submitted to them taking him into custody. So why is it when Black people are accused of non-violent criminal allegations like Eric Gardner with the Lucy cigarette in New York, and then George Floyd with this alleged forgery allegation met with excessive lethal force? What is it about Black men that the police see as so dangerous that they have to keep killing us even though we're unarmed?
Well, in addition to Floyd's family, of course, you also represent the families of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, 2 Black men and 1 Black woman who were recently killed. The Floyd and Ahmaud killings were both videotaped. Taylor's was not. How big of a difference does that make?
Oh, videotape is very important because it lets us witness with our own eyes things that we cannot unsee. And when you witness the truth, you believe that truth equals justice. And so what we're hoping, just like in the Ahmaud Arbery case, once you can visually see it, once you have ocular proof, America, you cannot look away. You cannot deny his family the justice that they deserve.
And you're right, with the video, there are certain things that we cannot unsee. Ben Crump, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And next, as we've reported, the death toll from COVID-19 continues to grow. More than 100,000 lives in this country lost to the coronavirus. A sobering reminder of the devastating impact this virus has had on so many Americans. The economic impact is also difficult to comprehend. 40 million people, that's 1 in 4 working Americans, or to put it another way, more people are now unemployed than live in the entire state of California, our nation's most populous state. And that's where Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman is taking a look at the scope of this national tragedy.
That wall of handcrafted tributes, part of a growing memorial outside a Brooklyn cemetery tonight, and just miles away, this 20,000 square foot testament to healthcare workers. The gravity of that milestone, 100,000 lives lost, marked by the physician who's guided the country from the beginning.
100,000 people is just really historic in the public health impact it's had on us. World wars, depressions, 9/11, this falls in that category. You know, we've got to pull together as a nation to get over this.
Cases of the virus still rising in 17 states, including Wisconsin today, which hit a record high. And in Washington state, half of all new infections are in people under 40. That is the virus's crushing toll on American livelihoods also becoming more clear. 40 million people laid off. That's 1 in 4 working Americans.
And it's believed more than 40% of those people won't have jobs to go back to when this is over. You can feel that need here in Los Angeles. Over 1,000 cars in this food distribution line. The traffic just to get in stretches for more than a mile.
And snaking through it, we found Laura Barriga, her 4 little ones back in their car seats.
How important is this consignment of food for you today, these boxes?
Very important. I mean, it helps me out. Like I said, I have 4 little ones. I barely work. And, you know, this helps me out a lot.
And a new obstacle tonight for the millions who've lost jobs. Now renters risk losing homes. Many states could soon enforce evictions.
What's the next steps for you? Homelessness.
Michelle Lewis is losing her home of 12 years. The locks changed this week after a court ruled against her. She's a food vendor in Mesa, Arizona, who used to make money at sporting events, but the crowds are all gone.
We were just decimated by it.
And for those businesses trying to reopen, the challenge of how to do it safely. The governor of New York today signing an executive order allowing businesses to deny entrance to people without face coverings.
You don't want to wear a mask? Fine. But you don't have a right to then go into that store if that store owner doesn't want you to.
But the president, who does not wear a mask in public, again taking aim at Joe Biden, tweeting overnight, he looks better. Dr. Anthony Fauci making it clear why he wears one in public.
I want to protect myself and protect others, and also because I want to make it be a symbol for people to see that that's the kind of thing you should be doing.
And Matt Gutman joins us now live. Matt, we just heard that heartbreaking moment that you had with a mother struggling to feed her 4 children. What sticks out to you most from conversations like that?
There are a couple of them. One is, Lindsay, the breadth of it. There were so many people there, well over 1,000 cars. It actually stretched, we later heard, for longer than a mile. So many people in need, so many conversations, the very same. The other is the ripple effect, right? So things are starting to get back to normal, right? That also means that landlords can start evicting people. And there's no way for people like Laura, who I spoke to get a job again, because now we know that about 42% of the people who will get back into the workforce when this is all over will not have jobs to go back to. So you wonder what happens next, what recourse do all these people have? Where are they going to go? How are they going to make money? And, you know, can food banks like this continue to sustain people like this for a very long time? And the answer is likely no. So we're facing some very dark days ahead of us, I think.
Right.
Lindsay.
So many in need. All right, Matt Gutman, thank you so much for your reporting. Turning now to Washington, where today President Trump signed an executive order aimed at social media companies as he wages his battle against Twitter after the platform attached fact checks to 2 of his tweets. So what does the executive order do? ABC News Chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl has those details.
President Trump hit back at Twitter today, accusing them of censoring conservative voices after the social media giant took the extraordinary step of attaching fact checks to 2 of the president's tweets filled with false information.
They try to silence views that they disagree with by selectively applying a fact check, F-A-C-T, fact check.
President signed an executive order aimed at stripping away legal protections from social networks so they could be sued or punished for the content their users post. But it's not clear the president has power to do that unless Congress changes the law. And he himself acknowledged he will face immediate legal challenge.
I'm sure they'll be doing a lawsuit.
The president was infuriated when Twitter put bright blue fact-check warnings on 2 of his tweets about voting by mail, including one where he declared there is no way, zero, that mail-in ballots will be anything less than substantially fraudulent. Today, he repeated his false claims.
But when they send out, like in California, millions and millions of ballots to anybody that's breathing, anybody in California that's breathing gets a ballot.
But, Mr. President, that's not true. You know, Gavin Newsom, Governor Newsom, has not sent ballots out to everybody in California. They're only going to registered voters.
How many are there?
So what your tweet said was not wrong. It was not correct. It was wrong.
Okay. Oh, really?
Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey tweeted, quote, "We'll continue to point out incorrect or disputed information about elections globally." But from Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, a different message.
I don't think that Facebook or internet platforms in general should be arbiters of truth.
As the president has waged his battle with Twitter, yesterday the U.S. passed a grim milestone: 100,000 Americans dead from COVID-19. Amidst an avalanche of tweets on other matters, the president noted the milestone in a single tweet this morning. To all of the families and friends of those who have passed, I want to extend my heartfelt sympathy and love for everything that these great people stood for and represent. God be with you.
And Jonathan Karl joins us now. John, the president is calling on the FCC to review rules around social media companies. So how are they responding tonight? And what did the president say today about his threat to shut down Twitter?
Well, first on his threat to shut down Twitter, he was pressed on what authority he would have to shut down a private company like that. He said that he would have to ask the lawyers. Look, Lindsay, that is clearly not on the table. It is not something he's going to do. In fact, I asked him if he would even delete his own Twitter account if he's so upset with Twitter. He made it clear that's not going to happen either. After all, this is somebody who arguably got to the White House with the help of social media, specifically Twitter. As for the FCC, a decidedly non-committal answer from the chairman of the FCC saying essentially they would carefully review any petition for rulemaking, suggesting the president's executive order is just another petition anybody would make, and said that the debate is an important one to have, but they don't seem poised to act on it at this point anyway.
And you mentioned that the president just made that brief comment marking 100,000 Americans dying from COVID-19. Some argue the president's focus on attacks on Twitter and mail-in voting, that they're just trying to distract from the administration's handling of the pandemic. Would you say that that's a fair criticism?
Well, it is notable that we passed that milestone as a country yesterday. The president didn't get around to talking about it until this morning through a tweet. He didn't speak about it before the cameras. Whether or not all the other stuff was a distraction, I frankly don't really know if you can say that, Lindsay. The president stirs up controversies all the time on Twitter. Sometimes he's distracting from bad news that's going on. Sometimes he's distracting from good news that's going on. It's just something that he does and does repeatedly.
All right, fair enough. John Karl from the White House. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you, Lindsay.
And for more now, let's bring in Roger McNamee, early Facebook investor and co-founder of Elevation Partners. Roger, thanks so much for being here.
Lindsay, it's a pleasure.
So you've been very critical of tech companies, Facebook in particular. What do you make of this executive order? I mean, the president likened Twitter's move to silencing or editing your phone calls. Do you think that that's fair to say?
No, it's complete and utter nonsense. And I can't believe the president really wants to do anything other than shift the attention away from the 100,000 people who have died of COVID-19. And the reason is because social media is the essence of his political strategy. I mean, he plays them like a Stradivarius. And, you know, I think what's really going on here is that he has very successfully created a distraction that the press and other policymakers and the public have moved to, so that we're not talking as much about how many people have died. And it's worked very, very well.
If you're going to fact check his tweets, then why not so many others that could also contain false or misleading information? I mean, who here is right?
Well, and the problem with this is that the implication is that if you do not fact check a tweet, then that one must be true. And in this particular context, there are falsehoods in so much of what you see on social media. I mean, the real issue here, and I think the Mark Zuckerberg piece of this is really important, because Mark is taking a position that's different from Twitter. He's basically saying we're going to be completely hands-off, which isn't actually true, but that's what he's saying. And at the end of the day, Lindsay, the problem that we have as citizens is that social media is designed to grab our attention. And the way it does that is it shares the content most likely to provoke our emotions. That turns out to be hate speech, disinformation, and conspiracy theories. So those things get promoted by the algorithms, they get amplified, and in the process, they essentially drown out the facts. And what's really wrong at Facebook, and the thing that I think we should be focused on today, is that we have somehow converted a pandemic, which is a national health disaster, into an element of the culture war. This does not help anybody. People are dying because of this, and social media is essentially the way that this has happened. And frankly, I think Mark Zuckerberg has a lot of explaining to do. And neither of the people who interviewed him asked that question. I think that was a big failure.
And you've called for more regulation for social media companies like Twitter and Facebook. Why do they need this regulation, and what would that look like?
So, Lindsay, here's the issue that I would point to. In 1960, we began regulating chemical companies, which at that time were like internet companies. They were the fastest growing, most profitable companies in the economy. But they were spewing toxic fumes into the atmosphere where people lived. They were pouring mercury into fresh water and dumping toxic chemicals everywhere and not paying the cost. And what we have with social media is that they undermine democracy by basically making it impossible to have a good debate. They amplify the most negative signals, so minorities have a disproportionate voice. And then relative to public health, they've essentially caused the response to a pandemic to be political, so that people aren't wearing masks because they view it as somehow in conflict with their political beliefs, which is unbelievably dangerous. And none of that would be true without internet platforms. And here's the point. I agree with Mark Zuckerberg. We do not want internet platforms deciding what are facts and what are not. But we also don't want them with a business model that amplifies hate speech, disinformation, conspiracy theories. So the problem isn't that the president lies or there's false information about COVID. It's that that kind of content on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter gets amplified such that it drowns out the facts. And that undermines our society. And tech is too important to let it go forward doing so much harm. So like the chemical industry in 1960, like the pharmaceutical industry in 1906, or the building trades after the Great Fires, we need to recognize the importance of the industry and use regulation to make sure it serves the interests of the country.
All right, Roger McNamee, really a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
It was a great pleasure, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
And when we come back, the growing crisis at the Mexico border, long lines to enter the U.S., and the spike of COVID cases in nearby hospitals. The soldier who saved the day after a gunman opened fire on random drivers. And later in the show, our conversation with the Dalai Lama, his thoughts on COVID-19, President Trump, and being quarantined.
Most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smarten up. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called you crazy. We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. Now imagine getting your news like that. No bull, no spin, just give it to me straight. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
Right now, how do you make sense of it all? Now, afternoons on ABC, one place with the good information you need.
We are all in this together, and we're going to get through this together.
Pandemic, what you need to know. Afternoons at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC.
Welcome back. Even though the U.S. leads the world with the number of confirmed COVID cases, the global epicenter right now is in Latin America and at our southern border with Mexico. Long lines to enter the U.S. Our Ian Pannell is there.
Tonight, as the pandemic grips Mexico, thousands of vehicles a day are still crossing the border despite a ban on tourist travel. The traffic stretches for miles here 24/7 because the travel ban permits workers to enter the U.S. for jobs, dual citizens, sick American retirees to go to San Diego for treatment. There are a few health checks. U.S. border officials look for signs of illness and may take temperatures if they think it's necessary. But there are concerns the virus is moving back and forth across this border. Healthcare professionals at Scripps Mercy in Southern California say roughly 48% of their patients have crossed the border in recent weeks.
Talking to the people on the wards is that there seems to be a lot either living or working on both sides of the border.
In Mexico, the numbers are rising relentlessly. We watched large funerals for coronavirus victims with no social distancing. There are now more than 8,500 dead here. Images like these of fresh graves in Mexico. They're eerily similar in Brazil, where the true death toll also likely much higher than the official count. Brazil battling an explosion of cases, now suffering the world's second highest death toll, only behind the US.
And Ian joins us now from Tijuana. And Ian, we've been hearing reports that hospitals near the border have been overwhelmed, but authorities are considering relaxing restrictions even further despite infection rates being on the rise.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, it's similar to a situation that we've seen in other countries where there's been a criticism that the relaxation of those restrictions has been premature. Mexican government is confident that now is the right time for a phased loosening of those restrictions, but it does include opening up some tourist sites like Cancun. Now, it won't look quite the same way that it did before. There will be extra checks. There'll be a lot of safety procedures. You won't be able to swim up to the bar in the pool in the same way that you could before. But the medics that I've been speaking to here in Mexico feel that it is way too premature, as they're still having hospitals full, morgues getting close to full, crematoriums unable to cope with the number of bodies, that now is not the time to relax restrictions.
Ian, panel for us in Mexico. Thanks, Ian. And we still have a lot more to get to here on ABC News Prime. You will hear the just released harrowing 911 call made after police opened fire inside the home of Breonna Taylor, killing her. It is another case that has sparked an uproar. The fugitive college student finally caught and now in a courtroom after a multi-state manhunt. What we've learned about this case. And this pandemic has led to a surge in drug prescriptions. We'll take a look by the numbers. But first, our tweet of the day, the stunning message from Colin Kaepernick weighing in on the death of George Floyd.
In times like these, the news-making events happen here. ABC News.
President Trump meeting face-to-face with one of the world's most brutal dictators, Kim Jong-un.
The president.
Do you trust him? I do trust him, yeah. I think he trusts me, and I trust him.
Ivanka Trump.
I have to ask you about your emails. Your father had taken Hillary Clinton to task for this.
There just is no equivalency.
So the idea of lock her up doesn't apply to you?
No.
Comey.
How strange is it for you to sit here and compare the president to a mob boss?
Very strange.
Michelle Obama.
What do you wish you could tell your pre-White House self?
Whew. Melania Trump.
Do you think there's still people there that he can't trust?
Yes.
Still working now?
Yes.
Michael Cohen.
So he's still lying?
Yes.
It's a big statement.
And now, in a year with so much on the line, we're right there.
Good evening tonight from Washington, a very busy news night.
America's #1 news source, ABC News, straightforward.
We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. No bull, no spin. Now, imagine getting your news like that. Just give it to me straight. ABC News, straightforward.
Another week in America, a country facing a new test now.
The Wuhan airport, almost no one here.
The last flight out of Rome.
This is the nursing home just outside Seattle.
Dozens of people were just rushed off this cruise ship.
This is ground zero.
It is shut down.
Another ambulance just pulled out.
Now they're headed to the hospital.
Time is of the essence.
You can see the ship behind me.
This is the first time tests have been done here.
Morning, afternoon, evening, late night, 24/7. ABC News, there for you.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, free on Apple Podcasts.
And welcome back. Throughout this month, we've reported on the impact of the pandemic on our nation's mental health. And new data from the Census Bureau shows the scope of the psychological toll. So let's take a look by the numbers. Some 34% of Americans now show signs of clinical anxiety or depression, or both, based on a new weekly survey of Americans from the Census Bureau that asks questions used by doctors to screen patients for mental health problems. 50% of adults say that they experienced a depressed mood for several days the week that they were surveyed in early May, double those who said the same when the question was asked in 2014. And about 6 in 10 reported feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge for several days or more. Results varied by state, with a whopping 48% of adults in Mississippi reporting symptoms of anxiety or depression, the highest in the nation in the survey. And younger and poor Americans reported higher rates of anxiety across the country. And more Americans are reportedly turning to medication for relief. Prescriptions were up 21% for antidepressants, anti-anxiety, and anti-insomnia pills between mid-February and mid-March, according to one analysis of prescription claims by Express Scripts, with claims spiking in the week that ended March 15th as the pandemic took hold in the U.S. And we still have a lot more to get to tonight. Our conversation with the Dalai Lama, what he thinks about the current news cycle. And later, leaders who cry and show empathy. It is not a lost art, even in these polarizing times. But first, here's some of the trending stories on abcnews.com.
Seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
To the right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. So if you like getting behind the biggest news stories of the day, inside all the details, the backstory, and what will happen next, then listen to Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. It's like no other news podcast out there. Even the critics agree. Listen free on Apple Podcasts.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming nonstop. Original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you.
ABC News Live. It's that easy to go there.
The Americans here on the ground and the Iraqis. 18,000 tons. Patatas. Ismail? David.
Over ground zero from Hurricane Michael.
You can see just home after home. David, nice to meet you. This was your view.
My favorite view.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The White House addressing America's coronavirus death toll.
Look, the president recognized that landmark before we even hit it. The president, that was, after all, it was the impetus behind him lowering the flag to half-staff.
President Trump tweeting this morning, "We have just reached a very sad milestone. On Capitol Hill, a moment of silence in the House chamber in honor of lives lost." And Speaker Nancy Pelosi calling their deaths a scar on the nation and wondering if some of the losses could have been prevented.
How many of those could have been saved?
The other COVID catastrophe is the economy. Today, the House approved a bill to ease rules around the PPP program to help small businesses. But it comes as new unemployment filings show that more than 40 million Americans have lost their jobs in just the last 10 weeks.
Some federal surveillance powers are now in limbo amid a political fight in Washington.
The House of Representatives is pulling the plug on a planned vote on a bill to reauthorize federal surveillance authorities. The bill was on track to obtain final congressional approval before President Trump tweeted, calling on Republicans to oppose it. He has since threatened a veto. Republicans quickly fell in line with the president, and amid the political uncertainty, the liberal wing of the Democratic Party also began to raise objections to elements of the bill.
And then all of a sudden, the commitment to national security disappeared by a tweet. Twinkle of a tweet, as they say.
Authorities captured suspected killer Peter Manfredonia.
We were there on a tip.
The 23-year-old fugitive was believed to be armed and extremely dangerous, taken into custody Wednesday night in Hagerstown, Maryland, near a truck stop where authorities stood planning their strategy.
As they were talking about his height, 6'3", 6'4", one of the team members turned, and approximately 20 feet away from him was a gentleman who was 6'4".
The University of Connecticut senior is suspected of brutally murdering 62-year-old Ted Demers and his own 23-year-old childhood friend, Nick Isley.
A Kansas soldier and father is being hailed a hero after taking down an active shooter with his own vehicle.
The adrenaline took over. I knew people's lives were in danger. I needed to do something.
Police say the incident started late Wednesday morning when the suspect stopped his car on the Centennial Bridge in Leavenworth, got out, and started firing at random, hitting several vehicles. Master Sergeant David Royer was caught in traffic behind the suspect's stopped car.
And I accelerated my truck as quickly as possible and struck the active shooter and pinned him underneath my truck.
Welcome back, everybody. Tonight, the city of Louisville has released the 911 calls from the Breonna Taylor incident back in March. Now, Taylor was killed on March 13th as police were executing a search warrant. Her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, says he did not hear officers identify themselves and fired a shot at them. Officers then returned fire, killing Taylor. Take a listen to part of Walker's emotional, frantic conversation with a 911 dispatcher after his girlfriend was shot. And we must warn you that some could find it upsetting.
911 operator, their emergency.
I don't know what's happening. Somebody kicked in the door and shot my girlfriend.
Okay, how old is your girlfriend?
She's 26. Bring it. Oh,
you said 26. Where was she shot at?
I don't know. She's on the grill right now. I don't know.
You said she's 26. Is she alert and able to talk to you?
No, she's not. Breathe. God. Help! Oh my God! Yes, help!
What's your name, sir?
Oh, my name is Kenneth Walker.
You said Kenneth?
Help!
Can you check and see where she's been shot at?
I can't. That's stomach.
Okay. Is she alert and able to talk to you?
No, breathe.
Okay.
Oh my God!
Can you get her turned over on her back? I need you to check her and see where she's shot at.
Oh my God! I gotta go, Mama. Okay. I gotta get you back.
Just a gut-wrenching call. Now, Walker was initially charged with attempted murder of a police officer, but prosecutors later dropped those charges last week over a lack of evidence. The FBI, along with local law enforcement, they are still investigating the incident. The 3 officers involved are all now on administrative leave. Well, with the world seemingly standing on its head right now, it's never been more important to stay calm and centered. And if there is anyone on the planet who can help us with that, it's the Dalai Lama. The spiritual leader of Tibet turns 85, and after traveling the world many times over, inspiring generations with the Buddhist message of compassion, kindness, and mindfulness, he remains as humble as ever. So as we close out Mental Health Month, our Dan Harris shares this unique conversation with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama.
High in the Himalayas in Dharamsala, India, where even here they're bracing for the virus, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who has spent much of his life traveling the planet, delivering spiritual teachings and meeting with world leaders, is now on lockdown just like the rest of us. I sat down virtually with His Holiness and started by asking how his life has changed during this pandemic. His answer? Simple.
No change.
He explains that he often takes a long meditation retreat every year for a few weeks or months. Now he's doing just that, albeit involuntarily.
And I always look television, at least 1 hour, 2 hours like that. Then most of the time, sometimes reading, mainly meditation. I think daily, my meditation about, I think, 4 or 5 hours meditation. Very useful, very helpful.
And he says for those of us who want to explore meditation, start small.
At the beginning, few seconds, 20 seconds or 30. Then gradually, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you can sit on that pureness of mind. I think worthwhile to start meditation. Then mind, not now sensorial mind, the deeper mind. Then you see focusing some deeper meaning, the meaning of life.
For the Dalai Lama, meditation is helpful, but he says even for him, watching the news is painful.
Very sad. When I saw in television some starving people or poor people, sometimes I crying.
But he reminds us not to feel helpless.
Indeed, it's very sad. Without losing, the courage. Sadness should transform determination. More suffering, more determination. Should not feel helplessness. That's a failure.
He references the struggles he's faced in his own life. He was recognized as the 14th Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader of the Tibetan people, at the age of 2. He was just a teenager when the Chinese military marched in. In 1959, he escaped into exile in neighboring India.
Like our own cause, we never sort of give up. We try to acknowledge these things. One fail, again effort, fail, again effort. That's the proper way. You make one effort, fail, then completely lost your determination. That's wrong. Failure, again, try. So, regarding this illness, now number of doctors, nurses, even they're willing to sacrifice their own life. I really appreciate, wonderful. So, without losing our self-confidence, make effort. That's important.
You have lived through so much pain yourself. You're a refugee as a consequence of Chinese military action. And now China is playing such a controversial role on the world stage. You are still able to generate positive feelings for the Chinese after all of this?
Yes, certainly. China, no democracy, politically quite tight control, so totalitarian regime. But this will change. I think China will change. You see, sort of friendly sort of feeling here. That gives me more inner peace.
Since the Dalai Lama mentioned that he's watching a lot of news these days, I ask about the performance of President Donald Trump, who he has criticized in the past for a lack of moral principle. You have met with every American president except this president, Donald Trump. I wonder if you could speak with President Trump now about America's role in the world in the midst of this virus. What would you say to him?
America, the leading nation of free world. So he's sort of thinking, only America, a little bit too small. That's my feeling. Then a lot of American media, you see, sometimes a lot of problem, a lot of criticisms. That's your business.
Given that so many of us are feeling so much fear these days, I ask His Holiness about the best way to reduce anxiety. He is unequivocal. Compassion.
Selfish, think just yourself, is narrow, foolish, short-sighted. As much as you love yourself, take your care, and the basis your own life depends. You should take care more than. So altruism is the ultimate source of happiness.
I've heard you describe this as wise selfishness. If we're feeling anxious or scared in our current circumstances, from what I hear, you're advising us to turn our attention outward to help other people, and that will in turn make us feel better.
Yes. I myself, you see, As soon as I wake up, I always think altruism. That really brings inner peace, inner strength.
Also on this video call with us during the interview is an American neuroscientist named Richard Davidson. While the Dalai Lama is a religious leader, he has also become a major scientific figure. Many years ago, he challenged Richie Davidson, everybody calls him Richie, to use modern science to study the impact of meditation on the brain.
We've all been taught in graduate school, when I was going to graduate school, that we look at a person and we try to find out what's wrong with them. And what the Dalai Lama was asking me to do is look at a person and find out what's right about them.
One of the things Richie has learned is that the kind of compassion meditation that the Dalai Lama recommends has profound impacts on our happiness, our behavior, and our body.
Compassion practice is anti-inflammatory. It actually decreases molecules in the body that we know are important in producing inflammation.
Before ending our interview, I had one more question to ask His Holiness. Do you ever watch something fun? What do you do when you want to purely relax?
So I look animal.
You look at animals?
Animal. Really, nature. Sometimes you see those animal, tigers or leopards, sometimes a little bit uncomfortable, but deers and these very peaceful, very peaceful. So I found to look animal.
His Holiness watching animals on TV. It was a great interview. Thank you so much for bringing us that. And so he talks about some meditation tips, and among those he says to start small and also consider starting out in the morning for meditation. Expand on that for us.
So I hate to be in a position of disagreeing at all with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but I might tweak that advice just slightly. Definitely start small. One of my little slogans when it comes to meditation is 1 minute counts. And I like to say that if you do 1 minute, it really can help. And I say that because habit formation is really hard. And it's really useful to start small. So I totally agree with the Dalai Lama on that. In terms of the morning, I think the morning is great if you are a morning person. If you're not a morning person, I think you should do it when it works best for you. Really, the best type of meditation, as Richie Davidson is known to say, the best type of meditation is the meditation you actually do. So when I'm giving people advice about how to boot up a habit, I'm just thinking about how can you fit it into your life in a way that will make it an abiding habit.
Okay, so note to self, I may not be doing that morning routine.
Fine. That's the reason why you anchor a 7 o'clock show.
Exactly. So that neuroscientist, he also was talking about the benefits of on the brain of compassion meditation. Give us an idea of how one would do that.
Okay, just to say about Richie, I mean, he has been a pioneer in studying what impact meditation has on the brain, and he's studied all kinds of meditation. In fact, he likes to say that the word meditation is a little bit like the word sports. It can describe a whole range of activities. So in particular, he's been looking at compassion meditation, which the Dalai Lama talks about. And so there are many kinds of compassion meditation, but the kind the Dalai Lama was talking about to us in our interview is called Tonglen. And it's actually quite simple, even though it has a name that may make it sound foreign. You sit comfortably in a comfortable position, close your eyes, or if you don't want to close your eyes, just gaze neutrally at a spot on the ground. And then you just breathe naturally, and you don't have to breathe in any special way. And as you feel your breath coming in, you breathe in the suffering of somebody. You pick somebody who may be suffering at this moment, and breathe in their suffering, and then breathe out your compassion, your wish that they be free from suffering. And you can move from person to person as you're doing this practice. Now, let me say, this may sound a little clunky, maybe even a little cheesy to some people, and it struck me that way when I first heard about these compassion practices. But there's an enormous amount of evidence that compassion is like a muscle that you can train, and that we're not stuck with our compassion settings like they're factory settings and are somehow unalterable. And that's a really radical notion, that compassion is a skill.
Always interesting and good to talk to you, Dan Harris. And you can hear much more of Dan's conversation with the Dalai Lama on the latest episode of his podcast, 10% Happier. We'll be right back.
do you make sense of it all? Now, afternoons on ABC, one place with the good information you need.
We are all in this together, and we're going to get through this together.
Pandemic, what you need to know. Afternoons at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC. Friday nights, 9/8 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime. 2020. Friday nights, 9/8 Central on ABC.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
ABC News honored winner of 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards, including the most prestigious honor, Overall Excellence in Television. ABC News, America's #1 news choice. ABC News, America's #1 news source. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
There is no doubt that this pandemic is a global tragedy. More than 300,000 dead worldwide, more than 100,000 right here in the U.S. So as we cope with this global catastrophe, what do we want to see from our leaders? Calm resolve, or is it okay, maybe even necessary, to show a little emotion? ABC's David Wright looks at our leaders and when it's okay to cry.
From the mayor of Los Angeles,
we are bowed and we are worn down. We are grieving our dead.
To the governor of Massachusetts.
Honestly, we can't thank you and your dad and your family enough for answering the call.
And the governor of Colorado.
As a Jewish American who lost family in the Holocaust, I'm offended by any comparison to Nazism. We act to save lives. The exact opposite.
And most recently, North Dakota's governor, who got choked up over the issue of masks.
They might be doing it because they've got a 5-year-old child who's been going through cancer treatments. They might have vulnerable adults in their life who are currently have COVID and are fighting.
Tears seem entirely appropriate to the ravages of COVID-19, not just in this country. When Pope Francis held his solitary vigil for coronavirus, St. Peter's Square dripping and desolate, the whole world seemed to be weeping.
Tutti fragili e disorientati.
We have realized that we are in the same boat, Francis said. All of us fragile and disoriented, but at the same time important and needed. All of us called to row together. Tears make us human. They also have the power to focus attention. Remember this ad? A public service campaign called Keep America Beautiful? A Native American warrior paddles into a blighted landscape, swirling with garbage, belching smokestacks, a modern wasteland.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it.
And this was the moment that burned this message home. One single tear. That got your attention. Tears among political leaders were rare in those days. Just ask Senator Ed Muskie.
By attacking me, by attacking my wife, he has proved himself to be a gutless coward.
The Democratic frontrunner gave an emotional speech in a driving snowstorm that cost him the New Hampshire primary, maybe the presidency. Times have changed, but not that much. In 2008, Hillary Clinton famously teared up in New Hampshire. That show of emotion helped to humanize her, but it was controversial too.
I just don't want to see us fall backwards. So
Clinton lost the nomination. The man who beat her cried that his grandmother didn't live to see it.
She's one of those quiet heroes that we have all across America.
He cried again after the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown. Lest you think this a Democratic affliction, it's important to note that Republicans cry too. Senator Mitch McConnell got choked up after saying goodbye to one of his longest aides.
Our watchdog never lost a step.
Former GOP Speaker John Boehner could cry at the drop of a hat. or the unveiling of a portrait, or even an event celebrating a golf legend.
They helped give birth to a superstar.
But Speaker Nancy Pelosi has never let us see her cry, not once. Neither, it must be said, has President Trump. Trump once told People magazine the last time he cried was when he was a baby. Coronavirus has provided plenty of opportunities, from the death of a friend
to me, it's a very sad thing,
to the distress of the neighborhood where he grew up.
I've been watching them bring in trailer trucks, freezer trucks. They're freezer trucks because they can't handle the bodies. There's so many of them.
But Trump hasn't broken down. Contrast that to the man running against him. Joe Biden has cried many times in public. He even cried on The View.
I think about, I hope he's proud of me. I hope he's proud.
Politicians, there is a delicate balance between the wish to show empathy and the need to appear in command. We're still, as a culture, a little defensive about tears. Our political leaders especially so. But coronavirus is putting that to the test. David Wright, ABC News, New York.
All right, thanks to David for that. And before we go tonight, a look at how things could have or should have gone in Minneapolis. A Memphis police officer fist bumps a protester during a demonstration over the death of George Floyd. We hope to see more scenes like that as cooler heads prevail. Our image of the day. And that is our show for this hour. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us, and good night.